and welcome to Living Fortified. My name is Tamás Finta. Living life to the fullest after 40 is an amazing adventure, and Living Fortified is here to be your guide. This is a show for you if you want to learn more about how to feel your absolute best physically and mentally. In each episode, we'll be chatting to experts about health, fitness, and wellness for mature adults. We'll find ways for you to move and feel better, stronger, and live a life that is truly fulfilling. Please hit and subscribe, and let's get Living Fortified together. I'm here with Nicky Wood, a naturopath, and today we're going to talk about cravings. So is that an exciting topic?
It is an exciting topic, Thomas, and thank you for inviting me to speak today and to talk with your audience about this topic, because it's a very important one, I think.
Absolute pleasure, and it seems to be such an obstacle for people to overcome.
Yes, and it really sneaks up on us. So, I mean, I'm sure there's many of your audience out there that would identify with 1 or 2 days of a week at least where a craving has gotten hold of them and taken them off track from their goals. So today we're going to really cover some of the ins and outs of cravings today.
So exciting.
I know, it's good, isn't it?
What's your background, Nicky? Why did I think you were the right person to ask you when it comes to cravings?
Thank you. Yeah, my background is I'm a naturopath. I've been practicing in naturopathy for 30 years. And I've also trained as a clinical EFT or tapping practitioner. We often use some of those techniques when we're dealing with some obstacles. So we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Okay, awesome. So let's get into it. So what are cravings and why do we have them?
Okay, so cravings is an uncontrollable urge to ingest or to partake in either food or beverage. We'll use those. Generally, this term is related to eating or drinking, something that our body doesn't really otherwise need. It's more like a want. Some cravings, however, are directed in and around a need, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But generally, a craving is something outside of our normal nutritional requirements.
Okay, and it can be anything. Everyone would typically think that's some sort of a sweet thing.
Yeah.
But can it be other as well?
Absolutely. You can crave salt. You can crave alcohol. You can also crave someone's touch, someone's presence. You can crave a number of things, and there's a little bit more information in and around the neurochemical and the science behind why we crave these things. But generally, we would assign a craving to either something sweet, something naughty or forbidden, or something salty. So we do have some of our clients will actually have a really strong sweet and salty craving at the same time.
Right.
So they can have that hankering for both either a really strong salty flavour or a really strong sweet flavour as well.
Right.
Someone who has an addiction to a substance will have, I guess, a potential craving for that substance, but that kind of goes a little bit more into that addiction space. We're not talking about addiction today.
It's another episode.
It's another episode, yes.
So what is the body, should I say body or the brain asking for?
It's a little bit of both.
Right.
It's a really great question, because when I'm speaking with parents of young children, and we're talking with parents around introducing healthy foods at the young age, and they're dealing with the fussy eaters and I don't want to eat this, etc. Oftentimes I'm looking at what's going on in the microbiome of the child, and the same would happen with adults as well. Oftentimes, much of the cravings are going to be coming from the digestive system.
Yes.
The bacteria that are geared towards requesting certain foods, certain ingredients, certain nutrients in order for them to do their job. But there are also other bacteria that require other nutrients that are going to then produce a byproduct that's harmful for the body. And generally, when we have a really high sugar craving, for instance, and it's for foods that are not coming from nature, so these are not nature's carbs, they're not nature's nutrients, that generally is a microbiome shift that's now starting to take over the appetite. And so the appetite's being cued from the digestive system versus from a pure nutritional requirement. we do get cravings for nutrients as well when our body needs them. So paying attention to what you're craving for actually makes a really good practice, because you then get to know what it is that you might be needing, and then also what it is that you may need to do if you're not craving a nutrient.
That's a really, really good information. We throwing this word microbiome around, and you and I are familiar with this, but can we just delve into what microbiome actually is? Because I just want to make sure everyone understands what happens in the digestive system. It's a very complicated place.
Absolutely, it is a complicated place. And ever since the genetic mapping of the human body had finished, what also then came on the back of that is understanding that in our system and on our bodies, so inside and on our bodies, we have this platform of bacteria, and the DNA of that bacteria outnumbers our human DNA by many trillions to one.
Yes.
And so the majority of that bacteria is located in the digestive system, particularly in the colon, so the large intestine, which is where most of your waste matter is processed before it is eliminated. And it's also where most of your water and your fats are absorbed. Your fat-soluble vitamins are absorbed before the waste is eliminated. And so it's in this colon that your body has this microflora, so this little area that does a massive job in the body in processing and making nutrients, in processing toxins, in converting hormones, in making hormones, and essentially signaling to 70% of your immune functions as well. So it's a really important part of your body that literally takes care of the rest of the body. And it's from this microbiome or this flora environment that the rest of your microbial or your bacterial environments will react. So for instance, your skin has a microbiome unto itself. Your lung has a microbiome unto itself. Reproductive systems, particularly in women, have their own microbiome platform or style of representation, but they all take cues from the gut.
So can we say with quite a bit of certainty that we become what we eat?
Absolutely. And I have a saying, and that is, if we look after the bacteria, we look after the human, because we're no longer human carrying around bacteria, we're bacteria carrying around human.
Can I use an example about craving? So I'm a big fan of peanut butter ice cream.
Okay. When you said peanut butter, I was thinking,
okay,
that's all right.
Peanut butter as well. So I think I'm in control of my peanut butter ice cream consumption. But that's the reason why I understand cravings, because I sometimes have very strong cravings for that peanut butter ice cream.
Yep.
What are the possible reasons why we have these cravings? Why do we choose one particular thing?
Yep.
Is it totally accidental? Maybe we have a reason to go for that particular item?
It's a great question. So something like peanut butter and then ice cream together, the peanut butter component of that may be signaling to your body that it needs some blood glucose regulation, because peanut butter is very, very high in chromium, which helps our blood glucose levels balance out. But then when you add the ice cream component in there, you're now in the area of comfort food. You're now also in the area of perhaps heeding a call to a memory, of a childhood memory, for instance, where those flavors together brings you back to something that you feel happy about. Brings you back to a memory that feels comforting, that feels joyful, that feels like it's a reward. And so now we're getting into the brain chemistry a little bit, because some cravings are related to dopamine, which is a hormone or a neurotransmitter, little chemical in the brain that is related to the reward center, so rewarding us. So sometimes we have a hankering for those flavors because of memory. And sometimes we have a hankering for those flavors or that combination because the body's seeking chromium, for instance, in this example. And then there may well be just a straight out carbohydrate sugar requirement. For instance, if you've been working out a lot that day and you haven't met your carbohydrate requirements for the day from nature's carbs.
So it can be a call from the brain, hey, feed me
Yes.
something, and
Yep.
what's the fastest
Yes.
energy is
Yep.
sugar, right?
That's
So
right.
we're gonna go for something
Yep.
sugary.
I would also say to that too, that your body's actually more likely, the primary nutrient it's likely to be thinking about in that situation, knowing that you're so active, would be protein.
Yes.
So your body's actually looking for a really good, decent protein hit. So if that peanut butter ice cream was made on peanut butter and a protein powder and some frozen coconut yogurt, and you were to blend all of that together, you're probably getting closer to a natural hit versus an unnatural hit. So just as an example.
That was a great example. That was also the segue to the next question,
Yeah.
which is what can we do? What sort of strategy can we use once we understand what's happening and we really have strong cravings for a particular thing that we actually know that to be on the unhealthy side?
Yeah.
What can we do to meet that craving without harming our body?
Okay, so I think it's really important to understand what it is you're craving to start with. So, for instance, in that example, when you're craving a lot of glucose, your body's probably looking for some extra protein. If you were craving a lot of glucose or sugary, sweet type, carbohydrate type foods, and you're a woman who's in a menstrual cycle, you may be actually having that towards the middle or the end of the cycle, so just before the cycle starts, and that's actually quite natural. A lot of women get a little hard on themselves around that time of the cycle. So this is after you ovulate and before your menstrual cycle starts. Your body's naturally needing that carbohydrate because it's trying to make progesterone.
Right.
Now, if you're trying to also stave off premenstrual symptoms, or you have heavy or early or late periods, your progesterone is probably low and your body's asking for carbohydrates at that time. A lot of women also will ask for magnesium. So around that time, and their natural drawing is to chocolate. So generally, if you're looking for a sweet hit and you're looking for something healthier, you could go for a 70% or higher dark chocolate around that time. And this goes for anyone who's looking for a magnesium hit, because the dark chocolate's very high in magnesium. Your green leafy vegetables are also very high in magnesium, but
less exciting to eat.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
Which one are you going to choose? I mean, when you're looking at a craving, these are things that happen pretty quickly, don't they? So they really hit you and you don't have a lot of time to think about it when you're making choices. So if you are going to make a choice, if you're literally going to drive your car into the service station and get a snack on the way home, try and look for something that is more likely to look a little bit more like how nature would make it. So if you can get some nuts, that's a great protein option for you. Yep. If you can get some dark chocolate that has nothing else in it, that's a great option for you as well. Even an apple would suffice in that situation. Oftentimes when you do that, your body will just get enough of that information coming through from those nutrients to stave off any more cravings.
Okay.
The other really important thing to do is to make sure you're well hydrated, because the hunger center and the thirst center are sitting very close to each other, if not in the same area of the brain, which is your hypothalamus. And so sometimes if you have eaten enough food for the day, you know you've eaten the amount of food that you should be eating for the day, and any more on top of that is overeating, then perhaps you're thirsty. And that's another important thing.
Very interesting.
Yeah, to make sure that this craving isn't thirst to start with.
Okay.
You'll often see that with mums, and they've clued in and they know they fed their children enough food. Then they'll go and say, have a drink of water first because I've only just given you some food. So the other thing, Thomas, to watch out for is fast eating. So if you eat your meals too quickly, you're going to miss some really important cues coming from the gut to the brain to turn off a hormone called ghrelin, which is essentially the hormone that your body produces that tells you you're hungry and it's time to eat.
Yep.
So if you've eaten and it's time to eat and you've got a good balance of proteins, fats, carbs and fiber in that meal and you still have a craving afterwards, maybe look at how fast you're eating as well.
Any advice on that? What's normal? What's healthy?
As in healthy food,
Yeah, no,
healthy eating?
Speed of eating.
Oh, the speed of eating.
Do you have some simple
about 20
strategies?
minutes. Yeah, about 20 minutes. If it takes you less than 20 minutes to consume a normal sized meal, then you're probably eating too quickly.
Okay.
If you feel bloated soon after eating, you're probably eating too quickly.
Yep.
If you start belching and burping and feeling uncomfortable soon after eating, you're probably eating too quickly. And if you eat the normal amount of food with the right components in it and you still feel hungry afterwards, you've probably eaten too quickly.
So that I need to have dessert, cake sort of thinking.
Yes.
Can be the result of eating too quickly.
Absolutely.
Not being satiated at the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And you know, when you do certain strategies around your food and the timing of when you eat, a lot of those food cravings go away. When you give yourself enough quality protein and nature's carbohydrates, a lot of those cravings go away.
Okay.
You don't even have to think about them because they're just not there. What ends up happening as a transition point is that your body starts naturally craving nature's carbs, nature's proteins. So you start seeking those as a priority. So there's some really exciting developments in this area that are happening, but it's a great way to put you back in the control seat of your food.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, we loosely covered physical, emotional cravings. How can I tell which one is talking to me?
Great question. Yeah. So generally an emotional craving will come pretty soon after an emotional event. So for instance, you get off the phone with someone, you've had an argument, or your teenagers walked in and they've gruffed at you just one more time. And your next thing to do would be to reach for something that is comfort food. That is an emotional craving right there and then. That is something that requires other action. Generally, that other action is movement. If you actually put a bit of movement in there instead of reaching for food, the craving will go away, because essentially what's happening is your cortisol levels have come up, have increased. And when your cortisol levels increase in that stress moment, what your body's seeking is movement, not sugar. So really important to do something quick. You know, there's a number of different strategies. I'm sure you'd have them, you know, up your sleeve and coming out of every orifice because you're so creative with what you do. But there's so many different ways that you can just pop in a little bit of movement in there when you've got that emotional craving really going. A physical craving is generally something that will happen when there isn't an emotional platform in there. And it is hitting you at different times of the day where your body has processed certain nutrients and it's looking for something else. So you'll feel it in your body differently. It will feel like a taste, or you'll feel like you'll get a sensation that the body's actually asking for something, or you'll have this sudden drawing to something, for instance, something salty when you've been eating sweet, or you've been eating well, and then all of a sudden you've got this little kick up of needing some magnesium, i.e. dark chocolate. You'll feel it in there. And generally there's no emotional aspect going on there. There's also no rewarding required during a physical craving. You're not looking for the reward. Your body's literally looking for a specific set of tastes, flavors, and nutrients.
Right.
And we've got these receptors on our tongue that tell us a little bit more about that. In fact, we've actually got serotonin receptors on our tongue. So if we are experiencing a little bit of an emotional respect, we may get a flavor on our tongue or a taste on our tongue if we are experiencing that. So that'll come quite quickly to us. We'll say, no, that's all I need at the moment. I don't need anything else. It's that specific thing. Whereas when you're going through a physical craving, you've kind of got a few options available to you. So
another thing that occurred to me as I was listening to you, that we actually have also activities and places that are connected with some sort of reward food. So for example, I'm watching a movie. I must be munching on popcorn, candy, sip on Coke.
Yes.
If we go out on a particular day, that must be a coffee and cake.
Yes.
So are these things okay, or is it not normal? Is it something we need to worry about? Or if it is, what can we do?
Yeah, so it's a great question as well, because I mean, we don't want you to feel like you can't socialize and do the things that you normally do if there's some traditions, for instance. This is why maintaining your health every other day is so important, because it allows you to have a coffee and cake and not think that you're completely derailing yourself. But at the same time, it's really important to make sure that this coffee and cake isn't a weekly thing. It's not something that becomes an everyday thing, an every week thing. You also can give yourself permission to do it differently. So you can choose to look at, and awareness is a big part of this. So raising this question and having these conversations is really important, because sometimes we don't even know that we're associating a particular location or a particular person with a particular food habit or craving. This is what we always do when we go here.
Yep.
This is what we always do when we're together. There's no reason why you can't challenge that. And there's no reason why you can't say, let's try something different. Let's do this thing and lay down a new memory. And I think what we do is we get stuck in a little bit of a rut, and we don't challenge that comfort zone, and we don't give ourselves permission to enjoy, for instance, the flavors of crunching on something fresh while we're watching a movie. So there's no reason why you can't take carrot sticks and celery sticks and have some dip at the movie, but we just don't associate the movies with that. But we do it with other social activities, don't we? When we're entertaining, we'll have cheese and crackers while we're entertaining. And we'll also, you know, in some cases, most cases, serve some fresh veggies in there. So there'll be some form of fresh veggie stick. So there's no reason why we can't change that up,
Right.
and give that habit a little bit of a shake up, and give it a little bit of a challenge at the same time. And, you know, when you do things like that, you get much better at getting on top of your cravings. You get so much more reward from the feeling of conquering that than you do of having and giving into the craving.
Right.
There's huge benefits to getting on top of something that you're currently in a habit of doing. So, yeah, there's some real superpower in there for you.
We like superpowers.
I know, right?
Yeah. I feel like we need to offer actual, tangible, practical solutions or ideas to our audience around this topic.
Yep.
As a trainer with over 20 years of history of asking people to do hard stuff, my brain goes to, okay, what's the solution? I have cravings for peanut butter ice cream.
Yep.
Let's not have it in the freezer.
Yes.
Because if it's not there, I have my cravings, I get over it, because I'm not going to drive just for that one thing at 7 p.m.
Yep.
So just go to bed and forget about it.
Yep.
But that's obviously a very simplistic approach, and may work for some people, may not work for others.
Yes.
Can you offer the audience maybe 3 ideas and tips, what they can do potentially, even starting tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing would be to identify, is something emotional just happened, and do I maybe need to move my body? Because that's an instant, quick thing that you can do. Something quick like jumping up and down, doing a little bit of a dance, getting a skipping rope out, moving in a way that just completely counters where you're currently at. And if it's a physical craving, then asking yourself the question, have I eaten enough of the right nutrients already today? Am I missing protein? And that's perhaps the first thing to ask yourself. The second thing I would do is maybe check your water intake. Make sure you're well hydrated, and ensuring that your hunger isn't thirst, so that we can make sure the brain has got what it needs. The brain loves water. It also loves sugar, and it loves fats. But your body needs sustaining fats, sustaining sugar. So it's really important that when we give it that, we give it something it can hang out with for a while. And the third thing is maybe trying a technique like tapping. So we use tapping as a way, or EFT tapping as a way of empowering our clients to bring the food along that they're struggling with. Like if it's like a no-brainer, I cannot give this up. Peanut butter ice cream is my jam, but I really don't want it to be. We can't take away willpower in tapping, but what we can do is lessen the desire, which then gives you that ability, that space to make a choice. And really, when it comes down to what can I do, what we're trying to do here is give you a bit of space before you make that choice, so you can make a different choice, a healthier choice, and one that's far more empowering for your body.
Brilliant. Thank you. I just have another question,
Yeah,
just as you were talking.
Uh-huh.
So this is all well and good. These are the things we can do if we feel that we have the power, we are in control. What can a person do when they don't feel like they can actually apply these ideas?
Yep.
What sort of person, what sort of expert
Yep.
they can seek out for help?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, a naturopath would be perhaps the first person to go and look at, because they are experts in the gut microbiome. They are experts in lifestyle management and lifestyle support. And that is an area that you probably want to have a look at, because if it's out of your control, then there could be some organisms, there could be a little bit of a yeast overgrowth or a parasite overgrowth that you don't know about, that's driving that appetite.
So it's not always that the person is really naughty and
No.
can't stop it. Sometimes it has quite a
Yeah.
significant medical condition causing
Absolutely.
it, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And the other thing is to be really kind to yourself, like really kind. Don't be hard on yourself, particularly ladies, if you're coming up to that part of your cycle. We always think that we're doing the wrong thing when we're going off track and eating carbs. It's the type of carbs that you're eating that perhaps is really undoing you. Look, the other thing you can do, I don't know if you can see this here, but I'm wearing, can you see it?
Not yet. Yeah.
I'm wearing a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor.
Right.
And you pop one of these on for 2 weeks, and it will tell you what foods are spiking your glucose. Now, if you're getting really big glucose spikes, your cravings can be out of control.
Right.
So it's a really great way of educating yourself as to what foods are spiking your glucose and what exercise is helping to drop your glucose down.
Because exercise does exactly that, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you can be also educating yourself along the way. And what I've found is that understanding what foods and what timing you're eating your foods are doing to your glucose changes your relationship with food completely. It puts you back into the control seat.
That's the best final words I could think of.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicky.
You're welcome.
Thanks everyone for watching this episode or listening to this episode. And please hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you won't miss out on any more episodes of the Becoming Fortified series. Thank you very much for coming today, Nicky.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.